what we have for you is a very compelling panel discussion on comparative analysis of citizenship and residency by investment programs, which will be moderated by a renowned journalist, Ms. Sonal Bhutra, who is a chartered accountant, an anchor and research analyst with CNBC TV18. And on this panel, I have the privilege of introducing my panel members, beginning with Mr. Sanjay Patni, Head Global Sales and Marketing, Sugi, Portugal. He's an international sales and marketing professional and has worked across consumer goods and real estate across Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia. So can I have Mr. Sanjay joining us on stage, please? And after Mr. Patni, we'll be joined by Ms. Inga Willings, Business Development Manager, CS Global Partners, who specializes in providing citizenship by investment and residency solutions for a diverse, high net worth client base. Ms. Inga, if you could join us. And after that, joining us on stage is Ms. Bindi Parikh, attorney and founding partner, Parikh and Prasad, PC, EB5 USA. She's the founding partner of the US immigration law firm of Parikh and Prasad, PC, and has been practicing immigration law since 2004. Ms. Parikh specializes in all kinds of employment-based, investment-based, and family-based applications, including citizenship applications and appeals. And after that, joining us on stage is Mohammad Asaria, founder and vice chairman of Range Developments Grenada, an international property company that develops luxury resorts. Mr. Asaria has a dual background, so please join us. We'll be waiting for you. He's got dual background in law and investment banking. An interest in structured finance and investment banking led him to move to HSBC prior to founding Rage Developments, the company that has grown to become one of the leading citizenship by investment developers in the Caribbean. And after that, joining us on stage will be Mr. Naveen De Silva, Managing Director, Grid Property Group, Australia. Naveen has over 8 years of professional experience in the real estate and immigration industry in Australia. And after that, we'll be joined by Mr. Chris Evangelo, International Sales Manager, STR Developments, Greece. He has an extensive experience in the Greek real estate market and in-depth knowledge of the Golden Visa program. And after that, we'll be joined by Mike Sarinsaki, Chairman, Chairman CEO, Altera Worldwide Turkey. Mike has an extensive experience in leading and directing major domestic and international infrastructure, as well as real estate development projects in the USA and Turkey. He will be speaking on the Turkish citizenship program in the panel. And we also have Mr. Ignacio Donoso, founder and managing attorney, IA Donoso and Associates, LLC, Canada. He's a renowned business immigration lawyer for the United States and Canada, with a practice of over 20 years as a lawyer advising thousands of clients to successfully navigate the visa systems of Canada and the United States. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call the lady who will be facilitating, maneuvering, and leading the discussion among all these experts. Can you give a big round of applause for Ms. Sonal Bhutra, ladies and gentlemen?
Exciting afternoon that we have today with our wonderful guests and even wonderful panelists out here. And we are going to discuss a lot of things because it is an interesting time, right? Indian population of around 17.6 million, that is the highest diaspora that we have seen. And it has increased by around 6% and highest in the world. So there is a lot of opportunities that we are talking about. In fact, the count of Indian diaspora has increased by 10% from the levels that we saw in 2015. So yes, interesting times ahead. And I would like to pitch it to all our panelists out here. Please tell us how will you woo all the Indians? What are the features of your respective programs and why should an Indian come and invest in your particular country as far as the residential market is concerned and as far as the citizen benefits are concerned? So let me start with all the panelists, and let me start with Mr. Sanjay Patni, who is the head global sales and marketing Portugal. You know, a lot of my friends, they're quite interested in traveling to Portugal. All of them are like, let's go to Lisbon, let's stay there for 2 to 3 years. What do you have to offer there? Can you get a mic for him, please?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Delighted to be here. I I've just sort of come back from Lisbon about a week ago. And I can tell you, Sonal, the weather was awesome. It was very pleasant. The people were very hospitable. The food was amazing. But that's just, from the cultural side of things. The Residency by Investment program in Portugal is one of the most popular and exciting programs across Europe. It kicked off in a big way, I think, in the early parts of 2013. And since then, about 8,500 golden visa applications have been processed by Portugal. The major countries being the usual suspects of China, Turkey, Russia, Brazil, and Indians have sort of taken up to Portugal in a big way. Portugal is a very, very exciting sort of place to be. It has a landmass of about 9,000 square kilometers, but a population of only 10.4 million people. So it's not very densely populated area. 85% of population in Portugal lives along the coastline. It's a very, very beautiful coastline that we have, very natural coastline, because there's nothing between Portugal and South America. It's just the Atlantic Ocean. Beautiful weather is there. And a lot of people are extremely friendly in that part of the world, and it's just simply amazing to be in Portugal. I represent a company called the Strokes and Ground, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of a Bombay-based developer, Sugi Group. Our brand is the Sugi Portugal brand that we've recently established. We've got about 35 years of real estate development experience in India. We are experts in redevelopment projects, and we've transitioned our expertise and core skills and competencies to Portugal. And we are participating in the real estate boom that is happening in Portugal. So what is a golden visa program in Portugal, and sort of how does it work, essentially? I'm going to be speaking about, there are multiple options in which you can get a golden visa. There are options linked to investment programs, to share capital, a transfer of funds, but I'm going to be concentrating on the property-linked investment programs. So there are 3 levels in which you can invest in Portugal. First one is €500,000 is the minimum threshold, where you can buy any kind of property, whether it's land, retail, commercial, residential, in any part of the country. That's eligible for a golden visa purpose. The second threshold is €350,000, which is in a property which is more than 30 years old, and it needs to be refurbished and redeveloped. And those are specially marked properties, identified and certified by the municipalities, different municipalities in Portugal. And the third threshold is €280,000, which is essentially in areas which have very low population density, so about 100 people living in about a square kilometer. So these are the 3 different levels of investments that are available. It's a very, very simple and a transparent program to have. What you need to do essentially is to make a purchase. You need to have a bank account in Portugal. You make the full payment, and you apply for a golden visa. And it's that simple in 3 easy steps. But what is interesting about this is on one application, you can roll up a number of members of your family, your spouse, your kids, parents on both sides. So between 8 and 10 co-applicants could be there on one single investment option. You don't need to live in Portugal for a number of months or weeks or whatever. All that you're required to do is in the first year, live there for about 7 days. In the second and third year combined, you're required to live there for 14 days. And in the 4th and the 5th year combined, you're required to live there for 14 days. So literally, it's like 35 days in 5 years. You can just go there for a holiday. It's a beautiful place. 18.5 million tourists come in a country of 10 million population. So it's a great option to sort of have. So you basically, get almost up to 10 members of your family rolled up into one application form, 35 days of stay. But what you get additionally is you get access to the Portuguese healthcare system, which is one of the better healthcare systems across Europe. You get access to their education system for your kids. Your children can study in state schools without any sort of cost to you. And these are wonderful sort of benefits to have for a number of reasons. The property itself in Portugal has been growing at a rapid pace, almost at about 6 to 18% per annum growth has been there in capital per se. Because of the high tourism influx, the rental yields are between 3.5% net to you. So there are tremendous advantages that you have. So the investment that you make, you're required to hold that investment for a period of 5 years, after which you can choose one of the three options. You can choose to continue holding your residence card for yourself and your family. You don't have to liquidate your investment in that case. The second option is you can apply for a permanent residency. You get a permanent residency for a period of up to 10 years, and you have the option of liquidating your investment if you choose to. The third option is to apply for citizenship. There are many countries which offer dual nationalities. India, unfortunately, doesn't, so you'll have to give up your Indian nationality, but you have the option of applying for a Portuguese nationality. The wonderful thing about the Portuguese program is that it is non-discriminatory and non-discretionary. So whatever language, religion, ethnicity, and they're not going to sort of sit and interview you whether you qualify or not. You just need to have a clear criminal record, and you should have done all the investments in a right way, and therefore you simply qualify. We as an Indian group have a number of projects there. We've launched from last year onwards. We are expanding in Portugal. There is a lot of demand that we experience, not just from India, but from several other parts of the world as well. And it's a happy place. We have our exhibit in room D. You're more than welcome to sort of come and speak to us in greater detail.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks a lot for that, for all those interesting points. Now let me go across to Ms. Inga. Please tell us, you will be representing the entire Caribbean space. What do you have to offer? There will be so many countries out there. What is the special feature that we are looking out for there?
Well, exactly. There are so many countries out there, and if I, let's say, start talking for half an hour each, let me just concentrate on three of them. Commonwealth of Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Lucia. CS Global Partners is a global marketing agent for these three Caribbean countries. We research, develop, and promote citizenship by investment programs for these particular countries. We make sure that these programs are competitive and robust. One thing that I can tell that CS Global, citizenship by investment programs should never be considered as the easy way. Until your passport is actually signed by a prime minister, it isn't 100% guaranteed. We all know that. It also should never be used. It should never be looked upon as an easy way out. Due diligence is tightening in every country, and this is the process that we all, from a professional point of view, looking into and looking for. I'm sure my colleagues here will tell all about respectful countries, and I will later on speak about the global changes that CBI program is actually experiencing. So thank you. I'll pass you the microphone.
Thanks a lot for that. Well, Bindi, we are talking about EB5, there have been a lot of changes out there. A lot of us do know about the US immigration rules and laws. Please brief us about that. Plus, what are the changes that we've been witnessing in past couple of months?
Sure. So great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And basically, the US EB5 program, a lot of people are familiar with. There have been significant changes in recent months. Before November 1st of 2019, you could invest $500,000, that was the minimum amount, into a US-based business and get a green card from your investment. Post that date, the minimum amount is now $900,000 US. You invest that money into a business in the US, you create 10 full-time jobs, and you get a green card for yourself, spouse, and children under 21. There are other changes as well, and there are two paths to getting the green card through the EB5. One is the $900,000 minimum amount. There is also a higher investment of $1.8 million. The $900,000 is if you invest in what is called a targeted employment area. It's an area that's experiencing a high unemployment rate, or it could be in a rural area. But if your investment is not in a targeted employment area, then you have to invest $1.8 million. So if you wanted to take advantage of the $900 million, you look for a project that qualifies under a targeted employment areas. Now there have been changes even to how a targeted employment area is determined. Until November 21st, every state had a designated office where you could approach them, and they had a method to determine whether or not the investment is in a targeted employment area. And every state, of course, had their own set of rules. They were allowed to count a number of areas to reach this determination, but now USCIS has taken control of that process. There are very few projects now that qualify under a TEA. So if you're interested for yourself or for your clients, you need to make sure that you qualify them under the lower investment amount. There are certain other changes that I think are beneficial as well. One of which I should mention is the retention of priority dates. So if you had applied for a case, say in 2017, for some reason the business went belly up and you can no longer use that investment as a vehicle to get your immigration benefit, you could still retain that priority date and file a new EB-5 visa. So you're not waiting back at the back of the line again. So these are the major changes in EB-5 laws. The last change has to do with the location of filing for derivative beneficiaries. Derivative beneficiaries can now file from a different location than the original petitioner.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. Let me move on to Mr. Mohammed. You've been an ex-investment banker. What made you move to citizenship by residence, citizenship by investment? Keeping that apart, tell us, you're from Grenada. It's an unexplored region, very touristy. Apart from that, what do you have to offer as far as investment from Indians are concerned?
Sure. I mean, let me just dwell on three things you said. First of all, the Caribbean being an unexplored region. Well, you know, we have one colleague here, we had a colleague this morning, and now myself. So I think in terms of representation here this morning, the Caribbean is quite prominent.
Oh, yes.
And the reason it's prominent is primarily it provides a very cost-effective, convenient, yet stringent second citizenship solution, which has really gained prominence over the last 5 or 6 years across the subcontinent and the Middle East. I mean, we've been developing in the Caribbean since 2012. We opened the Park Hyatts in Kitts, we opened the Kempinski Dominica, and in the next 2.5 years, we'll open the Six Senses in Grenada, all of which are leading hotels in the world. And having the opportunity to work on a beautiful island where the sun is always shining with a maximum temperature of 32, rather than in an office in Canary Wharf or in the IFC, was really one of the big push factors which made me change from being an investment banker to starting a development company which specializes on raising capital through citizenship by investment. You see, the award of citizenship to an individual, and we've had some good individuals on this talk about residency, but the actual award of a citizenship in return for investment has the ability to change people's lives. In India, okay, you have a very strong passport, but there's lots of reasons why Indians, and potentially even non-resident Indians, are looking at citizenship today. Why? There's a lot of tax anxiety which is spreading throughout the non-resident Indian community. In my conversations over the last 10 to 15 days, a lot of people are saying, you know what, India seems to be learning from the United States, which is a great thing, but in terms of tax, if one day someone wants to give up Indian citizenship, this exit tax is no longer a myth. For those of you who may not be familiar with the US situation, if you wish to give up your Indian citizenship, your US citizenship, you basically have a snapshot of your estate and it's like you've passed away, if I'm not mistaken, Bindi, and you have to pay millions of dollars. So with the prominence of the overreaching tax system, or not the overreaching, but the extension of the tax system, second citizenship is something that every NRI must be looking at today very, very seriously. And you know, every time I meet someone from the US and in the EB-5 industry, not just on behalf of myself, but all the practitioners in the room, I mean, we thank them. They really started the immigration industry and put it in people's minds that through an investment, you can migrate or take a citizenship. And it is the spillover of that investment that we are seeing here today. And Grenada, as you've heard, has become an EB-5 proxy, as well as having a whole bunch of other benefits.
Okay, interesting points out there. Now let me take this question across to Mr. Naveen De Silva, who's from Australia, Grid Property Group. you know, Australia is known to Indians very well. It's very familiar. But that is in terms of the ethnicity or the culture out there. In terms of investment, what should Indians look at as far as residency is concerned?
Yes, so in Australia, unfortunately, there's no attractive schemes as Grenada or other parts what we have talked about. There's no direct link between property investment and immigration. Property investment is great, which will return 5 to 7% rental yields. It will definitely help towards immigration, but there is either a skill migration path or a business migration path. So if you're a skilled migrant or skilled worker in the IT, they do have a skilled migration list. If you're part of that, you can apply under skilled migration. Whereas business migration, you can invest, if you're a successful businessman in India, you can invest up from $500,000 up to $15 million and get into the immigration path based on 4 different schemes in business migration.
Okay, all right. So that's as far as Australia is concerned. Let me go across to Mr. Chris from Greece. We know Greece for its beautiful architecture. We know it for the good food out there. In terms of residency and investments, what should one look at?
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. So what can somebody tell about Greece? Greece is a very beautiful country with more than 300 sunny days out of the 365 per year. We have 200 islands, and I believe that we have the most attractive residency program throughout this nice panel. You can have a residency permit with, if you buy a property of 250,000 euros, this stands with, you can get 5 years for you, for the owner that buys, the family and the kids up to 21 years old. And it can be automatically renewed if you don't sell the property for another 5 years. So after 7 years, you can apply for citizenship. Now, some quick reviews about Greece. Greece, as you know, we were in a recession through the last 8 years, economic recession, but now things are getting much, much better. And we have very strong tourism. From 2017, we jumped from 27 million to 33 million this year. 2019, we're expecting about 35 million tourists to come to Greece. Now, this is linked with properties because you can have great returns on investment through tourism. So if you buy a property in Greece for the residency program, then you can rent it and you have returns from 3.5 up to 5.5%. And if you go on a higher spot, let's say in the center of Athens, near Metro or near Acropolis, then you can get up to 8.5 to 10% return on investment. Now, through the residency program, you can travel through the Schengen area without any hassle. I represent some few words about my company. My company is the biggest real estate developer in Athens at the moment. It's Estia company. We are a company with headquarters in Athens, in Spain, Portugal, China, and Lebanon. But we actually sell now the last 5 years in Athens because we feel that it's the main spot.
Okay, Mr. Chris, I'm really sorry. I'll come back to you again on this. I need to move on to the next panelist. And good to know things are improving in Greece. Let me go to Mr. Mike, who's representing Turkey. Known so very well for the cultural heritage and in terms of development, yes. But in terms of the residency program, what do you have to offer as far as Indians are concerned?
Thank you very much. I'm Mike Sarımsakçı. I'm the CEO and the chairman of Altera. We are a real estate developer and a contractor based in US and in Turkey. So we have projects in both sides. But today, I want to specifically talk about our Turkish program. So first of all, it's not just a residency program. you actually get a citizenship, you get a passport. You get it in 3 to 6 months. For $250,000, you get a passport, you become a Turkish citizen, which actually distinctly different, and I would say it's probably the most progressive programs around the world. For the money that you're going to put in, you're going to get a real estate property, and then 3 to 6 months, you get your passport and your citizenship. We have been doing this with our Chinese investors. It's very successful, and now we are getting ready to launch our program in Indian market. Istanbul is very similar to Bombay. 20 million people. Bombay has about $300 billion of GDP. Istanbul is about $350 billion of GDP. So from an economic engine perspective, if Bombay is the engine of India, Istanbul is the engine of Turkey. What that does is when you come there, you just don't come to go and have a good time at the beach. You actually could make a lot of, potentially a lot of money. And there's tremendous programs in Turkey for industrialist entrepreneurs. We have incredible school system, both private, public, and chartered. And I'm one of the products of a public chartered system. After finishing high school, I was able to get into States. I finished Stanford, and after that I was in Harvard. So it is a matter of fact. And as we have done and we gotten passports for our Chinese investors, we're looking forward to do the same for our Indian friends. And we have a booth. If you'd like to learn more about our program, please come and visit me. I'll be more than happy to tell you more about it. One last thing. If you haven't been to Istanbul before, through our program, we're offering 3-night stays, and 4 days will be our guest. You will visit our projects. All you have to worry about is your round-trip ticket. Everything else, we pay for.
Oh, that sounds really interesting and attractive, right? Okay, then we move on to the last panelist. We have Mr. Ignacio, who is the founder and managing attorney at IA Donoso and Associates LLC from Canada. And I feel very close to Canada because I think my husband is a Canadian at heart, and he talks so highly about Canada. So please tell me, what do you have for us to offer as far as Canada is concerned?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to speak here. Obviously, Canada has a lot of things to offer. You don't have to love hockey to be Canadian. You don't have to speak French to get residency. It's an extraordinary country, and of course, it is one of the world's economic engines. So what is it that residency by investment in Canada offers? Now, notice that I said residency by investment. Why? Canada, like the United States, does not offer any citizenship by investment program. So when you're talking Canada and the United States, you're always talking about permanent residency in Canada through investment or a green card in the United States through investment. So residency by investment in Canada is really highlighted by 2 things. One, the Canadian immigration system has undergone an extraordinary modernization over the last 20 to 25 years that was intended to adapt the immigration system of Canada to its economic needs. So right now, Canada is going through an up cycle in its economy. That means that the country is experiencing tremendous economic growth, and it means that the immigration system of Canada has essentially opened the doors. And as an immigration practitioner, I use this phrase very carefully because I realize over the course of decades of work that I always say that doors open and doors close. And I worked very, very significantly in the Canadian program in the past when the Canadian immigration system was working on the investment immigration program that some of you may remember. And eventually that ended. So when Canada modernized its system, what they did was to adapt the whole system towards small business. That means that if you're interested in going to Canada to start a business, there are many ways of going. And the key change that is the point number 2 is the key change is the following. There is a federal program called the Express Entry Program, which many of you may have heard about. 470 points, and the lottery, and this and that. That's always there. the point of entry is really not that program. That program is a difficult program to get because most people don't qualify for that level of points. Nevertheless, you'll hear people say, oh, register, register. Listen to me. You can register, and that's good. But the real entry point to the Canadian system are the provinces, because the provinces got delegated authority from the federal government to run their own immigration programs. And they created 10 provinces, there's 10 provinces, and each of those provinces created a very significantly diverse set of investor programs that help attract businesses, small businesses to start in those provinces. And one of the interesting features is that Canada is a country that has most of its population on the US border. If you invest in areas that are outlying from the major metropolitan centers of Canada, talking Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary, if you invest outside of those major metropolitan centers, your opportunity to get permanent residency goes up and your investment thresholds go down. Why? Because Canada wants to incentivize investment into those outlying areas. And you're talking about investment thresholds that are in the 100,000 Canadian to 200,000 Canadian dollar range, which is a very attractive investment threshold.
All right, thanks a lot for that. So now I feel like going to every country, all I need is just some money, which I do not have right now. But yes, let's move on to the next question. Since we are short of time right now, I would request all of you to keep your answers a little brief. Let me start with...
Please,
yes.
I don't want to hear the menu in Portugal at the best restaurant. I really I have to say that.
Okay, so let me start with you, sir. Briefly, tell us, there will be some riders with the features that you've just spoken about. What does one Indian really need to take care of before applying for this program?
I think it's got to do with how you do the transaction. What is critical to remember is that to buy a property in Portugal, you have to have a bank account in Portugal for the main applicant. So you cannot purchase a property in a joint name. You cannot have a bank account in joint name. So the main applicant must have his or her own bank account and must invest in a property. You can have co-applicants linked to that for your golden visa, but that's something fairly sort of critical to consider. But the good thing is that once you have your bank account, you can fund your bank account through either your own LRS or through your spouse's LRS, through your family member's LRS, or through even your friends. Portugal accepts money coming in through any banking channel, through everybody, and that I think is the main thing. So I hope the dish was pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to go back to this very point that was raised by our colleague here on the panel, the difference between residency and citizenship. Where we talk about a residency, it is, basically what I'm trying to say is that everyone here in this room should know the big difference, what it actually entails. Where it comes to Caribbean countries, they are offering you direct citizenship. And as a colleague Mohammed here mentioned, it is a very cost-effective way to become a citizen of other country with all that entails. Basically, it's offering you a freedom, mobility, and safety and security and protection of other country, where you are not discriminated in any way and when you are not taxed in, let's say, your present way. So residency by investment and citizenship by investment are two different things. That's basically, and speak to all of us, should you wish to know the difference, we are just outside the booth.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks a lot for that. Ms. Bindi Parikh, what do you have to say about this? One point that everyone has to take care of?
One big point, of course, is do your own due diligence, because there's 800 plus regional centers, and you also have the option of a direct investment. So if you're going through a regional center, make sure the project is still in a targeted employment area. Make sure you're dealing with the right people. Also make sure that your investment maybe has an investment broker, a broker-dealer. Most regional centers don't have that. If you have that added layer of protection, that's very beneficial to you. Also coming back to the citizenship by investment, the US has a residency by investment, but there is a path to citizenship. Once you're a resident for a certain number of years, you can become a US citizen.
Okay. Mr. Mohammed Asaria, what do you have to say about this?
Sure, no, dwelling on that point, I think the key thing I'm hearing is it's all about due diligence, which is totally right. Whoever you're investing in, however many thousands of miles and kilometers away, get to know the counterparty you're investing in, because this is not just about acquiring a residency or citizenship. Invest with a trusted counterparty, someone who's delivered before, someone who's opened before, and that will provide you the security and the realizability of your investment. In the Caribbean, we're apolitical, it's calm, it's neutral. The islands don't wish to get on the world stage. Peaceful like Switzerland. And maybe that's a very attractive citizenship option. You don't want to go from one troubled country to another.
Mr. Naveen De Silva, we are talking about Australia. How is the real estate market there? And if one wants to invest, what kind of yields or returns is one looking at as far as Australia is concerned?
Yeah, Australia as a country has only 25 million people, which is the population of Mumbai. So there's 120, if you take Melbourne alone, there's 120,000 people moving into Melbourne every single year. Population growth in Australia is close to 2% per annum, so which is a huge influx of people who's moving in. Simply because of this, if you look at the fundamentals, as long as there's people moving in, they need properties to rent out and they need properties to buy. So the property market is pretty solid at the moment, and rental returns you're looking at 5% to 7% based on the city you invest on. And the capital appreciation, especially on the developing areas where majority of the population is moving into, is 8 to 10% per annum. So I would say property market is pretty solid in Australia.
Oh, absolutely. 5 to 7% returns, they sound really good versus 3 to 3.5% that we are seeing across the globe otherwise. Mr. Chris, as far as Greece is concerned, you said we are growing. The growth is coming back as far as economy is concerned. How's the real estate market doing? If one wants to invest, what does he or she have to look at in terms of the points that he has to take care of?
So you're asking what are the requirements of...
In terms of how careful one has to be, what are the specific points that one really needs to take care of, what are the riders as far as investments are concerned?
Actually, it's an easy process when someone comes to buy a property in Greece. If it is from a brokerage company, yes, they should be careful of the property and they should do a legal due diligence. Then the process generally is easy. You have to open a bank account. You have to have a Greek tax number, and then you can apply. You can buy the property, and then immediately you can apply and have in 2 months, 2 to 3 months, you have the residence permit. And it's a residence permit, not a citizenship for us. For 5 years, renewable for another 5 years if you keep the property, and on the 7th year you can apply for citizenship. So it's a rather easy process to buy a property in Athens. And I'm sorry, if you buy from the company, from our company, we have also the legal department that can help the whole procedure.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. Mr. Mike, what do you think Indians as investors should look at, or what are the points that we need to be careful of before investing out there in your program? Specifics out there.
Well, not a whole lot, because if you buy from us, Altera, and from me, I actually guarantee 4% return every year for 3 years. After 3 years, you can go sell your property in the market, which is actually part of the law. If you pay the $250,000, buy your property, you cannot sell it for 3 years. But during that 3 years, I guarantee you 4% return. Unless, if you live in it, that I cannot do anything about it, okay? So, and our process is very simple. You come to the airport, we come and pick you up. We'll be your guest for 4 days. We will help you open up the bank account. You meet with our lawyers. You go see the projects. We complete the transaction. It's a very smooth process. There's not a whole lot of thing to worry about in the Turkish program, because the president actually himself signs every single passport.
All you need to take care of is your return tickets, of course. Let's talk with Mr. Ignacio. So what do you think one should look at as far as the Canadian program is concerned?
Okay, so the Canadian programs, you have 2 extreme polar opposite models. Now remember, we are talking about 10 provinces with many different programs. But you can just break that down into two very, very different models. Number one, the small business model that applies in most provinces, where the foreign investor starts their business and takes the business risk of profit and loss. Okay, so obviously, when you're talking about a small business that wants to get off the ground, you're talking about an entrepreneur, you're talking about working with partners, doing diligence on what the business that you want to develop is, working with good advisors that know what they're doing, which is fundamental, and then pursuing the business activity in the best way possible. That's one model. Then the polar opposite in Canada is the Quebec Investment Program, which is old school in the sense of it is a guaranteed investment where you get permanent residency. So how does it work? Quebec Investment Program, you require $2 million Canadian net worth. You have to have management experience. You have a $1.2 million investment Canadian into a government, let's say, sanctioned investment fund, and then you get permanent residency. Most people don't actually invest $1.2 million because they finance that investment. Hold on, what? Finance the investment? They finance the investment. The Quebec government works with intermediary companies based in Quebec that are very reputable. They will lend you $1.2 million if you front to them the interest on that note, which is 350,000 Canadian dollars, which is what you actually invest to get residency under the Quebec program. Now, the Quebec program, what did I say earlier? It opens and it closes. It is going to open this June, and it will quickly sell out because for people who want a passive investment in a guaranteed investment product in Quebec for permanent residency in Canada, there is nothing better. But it is a completely different animal than the small business entrepreneur programs based in all the other provinces that have much lower investment thresholds.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, and thanks to all our panelists. Now it's time to move on to the question and answers round. Whosoever has a question, please raise your hands. We will get the mic delivered to you. Any questions? Yes, sir. Right here. We are just getting the mic to you. Yeah.
We are trying to understand about the residency and the citizenship. Do any of the countries help funding these particular properties as you get a home loan in India? Do you have any funding banks which do that, or it's the personal investment? Any of the countries? Majorly Turkey, Australia, and Canada.
In Australia, you can, as an Indian or a foreign national, you can borrow 60% of the property value from Australian banks by showing your income in India.
For the
We can organize that.
For the Turkish program, they want you to bring the money all from outside. So there is no loan to be given for this program. But if you have resources from other banks outside of Turkey, you could bring the money into the Turkish bank.
In Canada, you always invest personal funds. So if you invest in the small business model in many provinces, you have to invest personal funds. And in the Quebec program, if you decide to finance the investment, you can use a loan from a Quebec entity that has been certified for purposes of making these immigrant investor loans, but the $350,000 that you have to disperse to make the original investment must be from personal funds. And there is a very significant tracing or net assets tracing that is imposed throughout the Canadian system, including the Quebec program.
And Grenada is pretty much the same as Turkey, although there's no prohibition in the law about financing. But given all of these citizenship programs are all about creating economic development directly or indirectly, there's an expectation that it'll be coming from your own funds. And if you financed your assets in India to fund that, that's okay.
Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, I'd like
yes,
to
sir.
add something.
Okay, 1 minute, sir. I'll come back to you after this, sir. Yeah, please. Okay, so he wants to know the comparison in terms of rental income across the different countries. and the tax benefits as well.
I'm holding the mic, so I'll answer that.
Yes,
Zero,
please.
zero on your rental income. And in Grenada, if you're there for more than 183 days, only your local sourced income is taxed at about 12 to 15%.
Yes, he wants everyone to answer for their respective countries.
Yeah, so in Australia, as long as your income is less than $18,000 per annum, you don't pay tax. Especially if you go for a loan of 60%, your income will not exceed 18,000. So, but if you do a cash purchase, yes, you will be paying tax based on the income you get, starting from 15% to 30%. If your income goes above $180,000, it will become 45%.
Yes, for the Greek program, for the taxes on the returns, you pay starting from 10% if you for the first 15,000 euros, and then up to 30,000 euro, it climbs up to 18%. So actually, for the returns, if you rent the property, if your property in Athens, most likely you pay the 10%.
Okay, yes, sir, please go ahead. Yeah.
Somebody else wanted to?
No, please go ahead.
So I guarantee 4%. That's net. That's in your pocket after everything is taken out. Okay? Now, if you set up shop in Turkey, you start your own business, you get taxed 20% for business. I think that's the best way of situating yourself as a business. You get taxed the least.
Okay, thank you. We are running very short in time, so 2 more questions only, please. The gentleman out there, please. Yes, sir.
Yeah, to the question of this gentleman about raising a home loan or some kind of loan from banks abroad, I would like to add that Indian residents and citizens are not allowed to borrow any money for investment abroad. They are not allowed. Only if they can form a company and the company can raise money. But individuals are not allowed to raise home loans. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir. Dominica. Yeah, once.
Hello. The Commonwealth of Dominica requires $100,000 minimum investment per main applicant, with additional sums and additional fees on dependents, spouses, and children. Your parents can be included in the application. Parents of your spouse can be included in application. And if we go back to that little financing option, is that your application can be financed by a beneficiary. Somebody of your family or your business partner and so on, that beneficiary in turn will have to go through due diligence process for additional cost. So that is basically my answer. Thank you.
Okay, so 2-3 more questions then. Yes, sir. Tell me. Yes, you. If you're loud enough, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks. So with an eventual goal of getting a citizenship in either US or UK, if I take the route of a stopgap arrangement of either Grenada and an E2 in US, or a Turkish citizenship and an E1 or in UK, so does that in turn, which one of the programs or the combinations are more successful eventually to reside and get the citizenship further for a US or UK?
Yeah, Ms. Bindi, yeah.
So for the US, the path to citizenship through residency is very much possible. Once you are a permanent resident, whether it's through the E2 or it's through the L1 or it's through any other path, you still have to wait for 60 months before you can apply for citizenship. But the good thing is the amount of time that starts from the time you get your conditional green card, the first green card, And all the time that you're waiting to remove the conditions on your green card is counted towards your citizenship. So you qualify a lot quicker, but it doesn't matter whether you're coming through an E2 or some other visa. The time starts from the time you become a permanent resident.
Mr. Mohammed, you have something to add on that?
And this whole Grenada or Turkey E2 as a leapfrog into the United States, it's no longer a theory. There are people who've gone from Mumbai, they've got Grenada, they're now living in Miami. And the 5 or 6 other big countries where the US is the prime driver, citizens from all of those countries have actually done Grenada and E2. So it's proven, there's people out there. As to which one leads to residency, I think it's agnostic, whether it's Turkey or Grenada. It's a path to the US. Both have benefits in terms of expediency. You just have to assess the benefits of the intermediary option and which one works from you, from what you're looking for, visa-free or other sorts of issues.
Yes, Mr. Mike, tell me.
Yes, for Turkish passport holders, Turkish citizens, E1 and E2 is easier to obtain if you're a Turkish citizen. How I know that? Because I know that with our Chinese clients. They're having difficulties getting an E1 and E2 visas in China. We also have Ankara Treaty with British government, where a Turkish citizen can easily set up a business and can live in United Kingdom at ease. And it's at a minimal cost. I don't have the details, but in my booth or lawyer, if you would like to stop by, he could fill you in. So we have the Ankara Treaty to go and live in Britain, and for United States, we have E1 and E2.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. So this will be the last question. The gentleman out there, yes, in white shirt. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to ask a question about the person who spoke about the Greece. We are talking about a lot of investment and everything, but I was in the Greece and I found that the Greek government works very, very slow. I mean, after investing a lot of money by somebody, if he is stuck with the papers only, then nothing will happen. So what do you want to say about that?
I really don't know what happened in your case. I can promise you...
It's not my case, sir. It's everybody's case.
I can promise you that if you come in our company, please pass by our booth. I promise you, you can come and be served like a king. Don't worry. 2 months you will have... We will have you... we will take you from the airport, like my fellow panelists here, drive you to the properties.
The Turkish mic.
Yeah. We have our own properties, 500 properties. We are the owners. So we have the legal team, 20 lawyers can assist and have the blueprint, the residence permit in 2 months. So I cannot say anything more about your experience. I'm sorry.
You don't have to worry as far as Mr. Chris is there.
Thank you very much.
Okay, it's a big thank you to all of you. It was a very enriching conversation. Thanks a lot. Thank you for your time. Thank you.